Of course.
Did you guys have to click the button?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All righty. All right. So welcome. We hope that you're having a good day, flex day, wherever we are. And we're excited that you're here for our little presentation. It's a nice follow-up for our keynote speaker today. And of course, he presented some very insightful ideas about how, in general, we should be understanding the experience of other people, not rush to judgment, right? To encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And one of the takeaways that I heard from that was relevant, that's relevant to our presentation, I think, is when he spoke about when we notice differences in other people. That oftentimes, just out of instinct and conditioning, we sometimes go to what makes us different from them. How are we different? Not meaning to judge, that's not our intention, but it's just kind of a natural thing for a lot of us to kind of see, well, how do I differ from that? And then I'll look at how I'm similar. You know what I'm saying? And so I think what we need to kind of, what we need to think about doing maybe is to kind of break some habits that we may have as instructors and that our students may have. It's just a habit that we have of instinctually looking for things that perhaps make us more separate instead of inclusive. And there's no judgment going on in any of our efforts. We're all coming from very good places, and I know that. Everybody on campuses, we're good people. I tell my students that we're all good people, and we want to be nice to each other. So our intention, I think it's really important for us to remember that our intention is to be kind, thoughtful, and helpful. I mean, that's really it, right? But if we don't state our intentions and to ourselves and in the classroom, students don't know that that's our intention. So I always jokingly say when I'm teaching writing, don't assume, because that makes an ass out of you and me. That's how you spell it, okay? And of course they all laugh, and I go, and I said, but it is true that sometimes we assume that people understand our story, or we assume that we know the other person's story, their history, and that's when things fall apart. So what we hope to do today is to kind of open up some opportunities for us to do some self-reflection about our own experiences and feelings in the world right now. Because if we can nurture ourselves, we are better able to open to a nurturing classroom. And that's something that I have found over the last couple of years being not on campus, the power of self-reflection meditation. And it doesn't have to be a big, long thing on a mat. It could be really simple and helpful. And I have done it with my students in all of my classes online for 2 years. And just very simple things, which has reduced the anxiety and opened up better discussion. So that's all kind of what I hope we can get out of this. And Jana and Anna have been nice enough to help me. I asked them, and I so appreciate it. So we're going to start with just kind of an introduction. So go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Jana, you want to talk about this screen?
All right. So what we did is we looked at this resource called Bridging Differences Playbook, and the information is down here, and we'll kind of show it to you in a second. But it talked about kind of in order to sort of build sort of that bridge in our classrooms, it starts with us, like Lisa was saying. So working on those interpersonal skills, and then working on those interpersonal skills, right? And how we sort of interact with other people. And then the third sort of aspect of the playbook talks about intergroup. So working within groups that have really different different sort of opinions or different sort of schema. But we're going to just be focusing on 1 and 2 today. The playbook is really long. This is sort of the type of work that we hope to continue doing on our own and hope that you continue to do on your own as well. So we're going to start by kind of talking about like what we can do on our own in order to start to get to that compassionate sort of place where you can be more inclusive with other people. Do you want to add anything, Lisa or Anna? No? Okay. All right, cool. Do we want to look at that meditation, Lisa?
Yes, I think, yeah. So this is something that is, and again, we're happy to share this with you. We'll put the link in the, and if you email me or whatever, you're more than welcome to. But this really talks about how to have a self-compassionate meditation experience. We're going to show you a quick little video clip that I share with my students. But that little, yeah. So here's something that I share, and that the document kind of is about how to come to this. So on my first day, I share this with my students, and I just want to let you know that this is taken from the UC Berkeley Greater Good in Action website, which we'll share, which has a lot of mental health resources for free. So this is something that we'll just share right now.
I don't know anyone who wouldn't benefit from more self-compassion. It makes me nervous, it feels uncomfortable, but I can see how it can be potentially life-changing. Step number 1, think of a situation in your life that is difficult and causing you stress. Okay. Number 2, call the situation to mind and see if you can actually feel the stress and emotional discomfort in your body. Yeah, I can definitely feel it in my neck and shoulders. I know that's where I carry a lot of my anxiety. Okay, step number 3, say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. This acknowledgement is a form of mindfulness, of simply noticing what's going on for you emotionally in the present moment without judging that experience as good or bad. You can say to yourself, this hurts, but this is stress. Use whatever statement feels most natural to you. So, this sucks. How many more days left of this do I have? So just saying this is stress or this sucks, but that's okay. Those are statements that feel natural to me. Step 4, say to yourself, suffering is a part of life. This is a recognition of your common humanity with others, that all people have trying experiences, and these experiences give you something in common with the rest of humanity. Other options include other people feel this way, I'm not alone, or we all struggle in our lives. I think the I'm not alone statement really resonates with me. I think that a lot of other active duty military psychiatrists probably have somewhat of a similar sentiment. Just that knowledge that you're not alone really, really helps. Number 5, put your hands over your heart. Feel the warmth of your hands and the gentle touch of your chest and say, may I be kind to myself. This is a way to express self-kindness. You can also consider whether there is another specific phrase that would speak to you in that particular situation. Examples include, may I give myself the compassion that I need. May I learn to accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong, and may I be patient. Oh, may I learn to accept myself as I am. I think that really hits the nail on the head. May I learn to accept myself as I am.
So how many of us in this, I'm going to pretend we're a classroom, is that okay? Kind of modeling. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many of us in our class have ever practiced this kind of self-care? If you could just put your little hand up, your little emoji hand or whatever. How many of us have practiced this? Have ever done this before?
Oh,
If you've done, not this exact one, obviously, but something similar to it. Okay, thumbs up, whatever. All righty. So a lot of us, this is maybe something that we haven't tried before, and it may feel like it's, I don't know, those of us that have tried it, what might somebody who has never tried it, like when I first tried it, I'll tell you how I felt. Yeah, right, this isn't going to do any good. I'm going to be honest with you. You know, let me get out my light my candle. You know, I was kind of skeptical when I first kind of thought of doing this. Did anybody else who's tried this, were you kind of skeptical at first too about it? Right, Rick?
Me? To be honest with you, you know what? I did it, and it came very natural to me because especially when I have to speak in front of the crowd or in front of my class, I am always conscious of my accent because English is my second language. So at first, you know, I was so stressed about it, but later on, and I just get what you say, nobody's perfect. You just accept who you are and you would be upfront about it. And so whenever I deliver a speech or I want to do a lecture, I would tell my student first, hey, you know what? English is my second language. So if you don't understand, so please jump in and stop me anytime. I will be more than happy to repeat what I say. So I accept my flaws first. And they seem very understanding about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Right? Isn't it true? It's like, you know, Henry David Thoreau said, humility like darkness reveals the heavenly lights, right? And when your audience can tell when we are humble enough to admit our own fears and anxieties, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of reduces the tension in the room, and we're modeling, right, how to overcome obstacles and fears. And it's a brave thing to do for some of us, because if we're used to being at the front of the room and having, you know, that authoritative stance for decades in the classroom, it may seem like, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm insecure about something. But I have found over and over again, and I daily say, whoops, in my classroom, you know, is this okay? You know, am I clear? I'm trying here. So I think that's, so going back to that voice in our head, right, Rick, and everybody
Yes.
else who has that, has to be, I'm okay as I am, and I'm doing the best that I can.
Yes,
Right?
and also want to add it because came from Vietnam, you know, and I went through high school in Vietnam. The teachers, the professors, they are authoritative figures. They mentors. They're supposed to know it all. So therefore, I kind of carry that mentality when I came here in the college. But it did not work out that way because it would give me more stress.
Right.
You know? Yes.
Right. So you're modeling what you were doing, what you learned, but it's not working. It's that self-assessment that I'm stressed. And I think a lot of what, you know, the old saying, we either, if we feel anxious, we either flee, right?
Yes.
We fight, but the other one we do is we freeze, I find. So, and so I know for me, when I get anxious, Netflix, right? I mean, all of a sudden I've got to watch it, you know, or I have to fold laundry or something, but that's really freezing. That's more like we're running away from our anxiety. And what's important about this first step is to come to understand that it's okay to feel not okay. And it's just a passing feeling, right? So thank you. Does anybody else want to share an experience that you had when if you have tried to do some kind of self-compassion meditation before?
I have a similar situation. In my classrooms, I teach math, and I hear all the time students say, I'm never good. I will never pass the class. So I try to share my kids' stories with my students who had the same fears, but then did really well in math just by practicing growth mindset.
Yes. Very good, right?
Yes.
And so, yes.
And I do a lot of motivational videos, like short clips, to help them see other people. There is one video we share, and I don't take credit for this. In COP, my colleagues have shared a lot of motivational videos, such as the famous failures. And this is really a good motivational video. Another one I also share is stuck on the escalator. So two people are stuck on the escalator. What they can do is just walk up the stairs and just continue their, where they're going. And instead, they stay stuck on that escalator. And then I tell them, this is if you are stuck in my class, you don't share with me, I would not know. And if you don't take the steps to get help, then you're going to be stuck. And so many things like this, and it works. It works really well. It depends on the class. The class that I teach, and I use a lot of motivational videos to help students and personal stories about my experience with math, my kids' experience with them, is the business calculus. I know students are not that interested in math, and that's the only class they need to move on. So they need a lot of support with this.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
And I
Yeah,
think, yeah, go ahead, Jana.
Really quick, if you wouldn't mind sharing that video that you mentioned in the chat, I'm sure other people would love.
Yeah, sure. I'll share both the stuck on the escalator and famous failures.
Famous failures.
Thank you. Yeah, because
And
part of what
I asked them which story is the most fascinating for them.
Oh, that's a yes. Nice.
Because there are very a good number of famous people who were thought they were failures, but then they succeeded. So yes, of course. Let me look them up and I'll put them in the chat.
Thank you so much, because part of what we want to do today is figure out how we can move forward with tangible things we can do in our classrooms, especially since we're all coming back, on campus, maybe for the first time in 2 years, or, so it's important to kind of think about what we're going to do in the next week or two. So thank you.
Right. So, and so that it is the self-compassion, I think, going to the math example, right? And of course, English people, we know they have anxiety about that, writing and everything. It's okay to be anxious. You're not alone in this. And that's what is building the bridges to other students, and I'll give you some examples that I do in the classroom in a minute, we can share, but let's just kind of go through, if you could just share that screen really fast about the Insight Timer one. I just want to show the one about self-compassion again. Okay, and I will put this, we can email it, but this is the thing, you see that thing in the middle, that little mantra statement, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be kind to myself, and may I accept myself as I am. I mean, that's something that I'm going to be using in my classes from day one. I'm going to begin each class with that together with my students, and just kind of have a moment of quiet to take our breath, catch our breath and so forth, especially because we have to scan everybody in. There's a lot of anxiety that's going to be there for students and me. So, and just kind of center ourselves, and that's just something I wanted to share. But this thing kind of goes through the whole method. I'm going to post that for my students in case they've never done it also. So the next thing is we were going to look at how to do the next, okay. So this is how to practice, I'm just trying to move you guys over, on our own. So we need to do intrapersonal before we can help our students. So this little thing from Berkeley really does, if we can share the screen with the little descriptions of each one of these, and you're going to get the whole document. Does that make sense if you want to look at it? But it's a really cool thing. So I think we scroll down, right? Yeah. So the first thing, it tells you how to do it. But if we could, okay. Where are the steps? Are we in? Oh, it's on page 20. I think we have to go back up. I think
Yeah.
we're going to yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, listen
yeah.
with compassion. Okay, so here are the, yeah. And this kind of thing, so if we were to, if you're, what is this way? Which one is this one? This is 44. Now we need to go up. We need to go up to right, for ourselves.
Yeah, so this is, I think this is,
That's old. We have to go to page like 22 or something.
this is,
Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know why I keep saying 40. Okay.
I know that it's the difference between, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so first we have the assume good intentions.
There we go.
Right?
Okay.
So that idea that you were taught, you started this by talking about assuming everyone sort of is coming to the table ready to learn and that kind of thing. Right?
And also to feel and that if I say with, and I think right here, that part where it says, by assuming that the other person, other students, are from a place of goodwill. In other words, that we're all good people wanting to do the right thing.
Mhm.
And it may be that somebody in our classroom is not feeling that way, but if we say it, suggestion, right? And that's something that, you know, we should do before we interact with anybody outside of ourselves, but it does help, I think, to remember that. If you look down, it says, next time you feel slighted during interaction, stop yourself from taking offense and instead try to hear the underlying comment of what it was intended to be. Don't assume, right, that if somebody says something that triggers us to make us upset, that was what they were meaning to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and again, it's habit of a lot of people to just react to that emotion of feeling offended or anxious instead of reflecting and stopping before just reacting, which is often defensive, understandably, because you're feeling threatened. Does that kind of make sense? So I think just, and I do talk my students through this. So I spend time. I'm not saying you all have to, but at least they're kind of learning one thing. So assuming the best in others. And the next one is?
The practicing mindfulness.
Which is a practice, yeah. Jana?
Yeah. So this is something that, like Lisa shared, we can do in the classroom, but we can also do on our own. And we have a couple of resources to kind of show you in a second that we use. Lisa uses Insight Timer. I do meditations with the Honest Guys on YouTube. So just like taking a second to really be where our feet are, right? And I think sometimes, like in the midst of sort of our hectic day, we show up on campus, we have to like run down to our building, we have to make sure everything is going. There's students like coming at us with questions like before class and after class. I think just taking a moment to breathe and feel, feel present can be really helpful.
Right. And in that, and just so when you guys all, that why try is a really important, I think if you go back to this for a second, because why trying that meditation at the bottom, it just says enabling us to respond with great thoughtfulness, right, and equanimity rather than reacting more hastily. Mm-hmm. Because like Jana said, it's going to be stressful the first couple of weeks, with all this mass stuff. And you can take a breath. You could say, we're going to take 5 minutes. Everybody, you can stop classes and breathe a little bit. And that gets them a chance to breathe too. Okay, the next one.
Yeah, and like, what would it be like to show our students that we're human?
Right.
What would that feel like? How would that be for them?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. So the next one is expanding your activities and your views, right? So again, this is kind of thinking about seeing our world in a different way, right? And like it's talking about bringing an open mind to new activities and new thoughts. And I think that that's something to think about as we come into the classroom as well. Like what kind of ideas our students are bringing in and being open-minded to those.
Right. And one way to, in literature, it's easy for us to do because they are asked in studying fiction to imagine somebody else's world that is foreign to them. So our discipline kind of naturally does that. I think when we talk about fiction in the English classes, but it's kind of like the imagine, whatever, let's just say, whatever political belief you have, imagine being the person on the opposite end of that spectrum. Really do a mental walk in their shoes instead of saying, I don't want to hear them. That's a choice we can make or we cannot make. But if you choose to make that activity of putting, we heard the phrase walking in somebody else's moccasins. It takes practice to really do that and to feel empathy for them, not just, I don't want to hear them or they're wrong. Are we listening to get our words out or are we listening to understand them? And students can tell when their peers are doing that and when their teachers are doing that. And the next one. Yeah.
The seek and promote counter stereotypical information.
Right.
And so I think that kind of speaks to what you were just talking about.
Right.
For sure. Kind of jumps off of that.
Right.
And then the last one is focus on individuality, not group identity. So actually our speaker this morning was talking a lot about this idea of identity and individuals. And so kind of, looking at them as the unique person that they're bringing to the table,
Right. And if you look at that last paragraph there, keep in mind,
Mm-hmm.
the key to shifting your perspectives to humanize the other person, giving them more individual features and agency rather than a stereotype of this kind of student or this kind of person. So you might want to avoid questions that on their passive social identities, are they or over 21, and focus more on the active choices and preferences they express. And he kind of talked about that a lot with those examples today, So anyway, we just wanted to share that with you in general.
Mm-hmm.
And
one, Lisa, just to add to that, because you're talking about our speaker too, when he was saying, look at what you have now and what you have later. One of the things I don't like about Flex Day is we start teaching tomorrow, but I know that having worked with you on some of these ideas during the break, my syllabus looks a lot different today than it looked a semester ago. And statements about what I expect our space to be, but also thinking about who my students are and not making assumptions about them. So trying to rephrase things in a way that says, these are just the things that I'm expecting, but I'm not expecting you to push me on this. I'm not getting defensive already about the things that might hit me down the road. I'm trying to make this a document that welcomes people into the learning environment.
right. Yeah, good. And that's a very good point, because we've been working on this for a while. So we've been, and so it may not be able to happen this semester, a lot of the stuff, because you're still, look, this is done. But, and it is frustrating, I agree. But you could do little things maybe, but don't get frustrated. If you're frustrated, don't get overwhelmed and go, well, I can't do it, it's too late. Try a little something. Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be,
or interpersonal.
Yes.
And yeah, compassionate on yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the next thing we're going to do is to get into little breakouts, right? Is that we decided for the, self-reflection. Oh yeah, okay, this is important. These are questions you can ask your students and that we were going to ask you.
Yeah, so we were thinking that this is something that, we can either do on our own, or we were going to open up a breakout room if you feel more kind of chatty and practicing, being in touch with other human beings. I can open a breakout room and you guys can go there, or you can just kind of jot down some stuff on your own. So I think kind of looking at your own experience, right? And I appreciate, the people who shared so far, because you did share about number one, like feeling like an outsider, number two, when you felt like your voice has not been heard. And so looking at a time when we all felt that way, how it made you feel, what did you do about those feelings? Right. I think sometimes it's easy to either like stuff them down, or like I end up trying to like do things even, I get into that perfectionism, right? Like if I'm feeling, that's where I go with it, right? Like, what can I do better? How can I work harder? So I don't feel this way again. And so number four, like, what do you wish someone had done, right, to help you out? And for me, my goal with that number four is to then think about how can I be that person for my students as they come in, scared and stressed and still like not sure what's happening with the pandemic. So I think maybe, do you think 5 minutes works? 5 minutes works?
I think so.
Yeah. So let's just take 5 minutes and we can jot this down, and I'll also open up a breakout room that you guys can kind of.
We maybe open up like, yeah.
All right, hold on.
Maybe like 3 different ones in case, well, we don't want it. I don't know how to do it. If somebody, does anybody want to go into breakout room?
I'll just open it. They can pop in if they want. They don't have to. You can be like, hey, Karsten, meet me in breakout room 2. I miss you. Let's talk. Whatever you want. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and mute myself and we'll just kind of be quiet in this room, and then in the breakout rooms, you guys can chat. So I'll put my timer on for 5 minutes for me too.
I like being curious, where you're curious about the other person's point of view. And I had an experience at Christmas when I had to spend time with family members I don't usually spend time with, and they have an opposite opinion regarding COVID and vaccines. And so I had a very interesting discussion with them. Maybe later I had reactions after I came home, but it was meeting in kind of a mutual ground and just being curious and listening to them and hearing what they had to say. Oh, that's very interesting. So.
Right. And what's really nice about this, I think, is that we can share this with students so easily, like, because they will go, oh, thank you. My students have always said to me, I never thought of that, but we can't assume that they know how to do this. And it's a quick, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So cool. And the next one was group 2.
So I'll speak for our group. I'll be honest, we were a little lost at first.
That's okay.
But if we were to go, so I'm figuring out that maybe we each had a number. So if group 2 had a number, it was about, being curious, asking questions, of the person you're listening to, and they gave the, kind of fill in the box and, sort of scenario of when you say this, what do you mean this or whatever, to kind of clarify. So, we're in healthcare, as I work in the nursing department. We have a lot of situations where, there's moments where we have to debrief and discuss things, and we pause and to reflect on, what just happened. How do they feel about that? What does that mean to them? Just kind of clarifying conversations and having moments where we can have that conversation, or, I don't know, something along those lines, because we use a lot of terminology in healthcare. That doesn't always mean the same thing to other people. Everybody has personal opinions and life experiences that they bring to, these types of life-changing situations that they encounter. So it's important to allow moments for sharing and clarification. So we try to do that as much as we can. Of course, days get busy, and like you said, there's a lot to do, a lot to cover, but we find that that's helpful for our students when we take time to do that.
Thank you, Jennifer. I love that idea of like pause, just like we can pause as a class for a second. Number 3 was about perspective taking and giving. Because we only have like 8 minutes left, I think maybe the most helpful thing would be for people just to kind of share, anything that came up in your groups, that, you know, is helpful for you in sort of building a community. And I'd kind of just like to hear from the people who kind of have things that they want to share, if that's okay. Since we're running out of time so quickly. Is there anyone that had something that they were like, oh, this is really helpful in my class, or something that stood out?
I was in the sharing perspectives group. The one thing we all sort of agreed on was that the idea of listening to perspectives and sharing perspective, or that with people that are definitely feel differently than we do about things, particularly lately, is it's actually easier with students. We all sort of agree it's difficult to do the things that we're saying are a good idea to do when we're dealing with family and friends. If they're opposed us politically. But it seemed in our group, we all sort of share that, you know, when you run into a student who is politically or culturally very different and even opposed to your thinking, it is easier for me to just be patient and to keep my own personal perspective completely separate. And maybe that's just sort of like after experience, you get that. Whereas that all goes away when you're dealing with a family member who doesn't agree with me.
Yeah, that's a good, and there's not that past history. That's a very good point. So we're kind of more open and compassionate because you don't have the scars from other experiences. Very good point. Yeah.
I like that.
Now you have to treat them like your students. Whenever you have a heated discussion, okay, now I'm talking to my student, even you're talking to your mom or to your dad. So to have an open mind, say, okay, I will keep my point of view to myself. I will listen to your point of view. But I would like to quote what Lisa said in the breakout room, you know, very, very true. It's easy said than done.
Yeah.
I was just about to say what Karsten said actually ties into what our group was looking at, which was this idea of social distancing, especially in a heated conversation or if there's conflict there. And the three of us in our breakout, Rick and Taros and myself, we all agreed like we're all still working on that, especially if it's a personal relationship. I think it's much harder. But that was exactly on point what Carson just pointed out. It might be easier with certain people to do that than others.
And I think for students, I always remember that for students to be in like a group doing something in class, either they may feel less comfortable than we are because we are the people who are in authority in the classroom. Do you know what I'm saying? I might, afraid to say what they feel. Could you imagine? And I'm just talking about like a short story, like 3 people like this character and this person thinks this character's a jerk. I mean, that kind of thing. How can they be encouraged? And I give those kind of scenarios in the classroom. I'll say, I don't really talk about politics in English as much, only through the literature, but it's kind of like, well, what happens if 3 people in the group feels this way about a character and one person doesn't? How would you feel if you were that person? That person's views on that character should be heard too. How can we encourage that voice to be heard? How do you know if that person is afraid to say something? So all of us have our disciplines where maybe the math problem, they're taken from a different direction. Do you know what I'm saying? Or, that kind of thing where it's not necessarily political. But yeah.
Hey, Lisa, I just popped into the chat something that I've been using to frame what those conversations, like, how do I express something when I'm feeling uncomfortable? And Aware LA has a really nice rundown of things that you can talk about in engaging in uncomfortable conversation. So the last one is the middle page has little notes from them, but the last page is something that I'm planning to give my students that gives us a way to talk about how to talk about hard things.
Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yeah.
And so we can all just copy and paste that from the right now, you guys, from the chat if you want to, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that organization actually has really interesting trainings where you can practice in a Zoom setting, having hard conversations with people using these things and applying them. And I went to a training one time and they do they call them like Saturday dialogues or something. And I just thought that was the most fascinating idea is like, okay, now, what happened? Here's the scenario, trade roles and react in different ways and see people's perspectives. And it was a really great exercise. A good resource to share. Thanks, Anna.
And speaking of good resources, another idea, I'm moving into this language of not creating a safe space, but creating a brave space where, Lisa, you mentioned earlier, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Discomfort is productive. And I thought that the chapter that I just popped in, Sarah really wonderfully acquired the text at the library. And that particular chapter is one that I've been using to kind of think about the tone of conversations in my classrooms.
Thank you so much, Jana.
And then if you just wanted to share, because we did say the syllabus thing also.
Yes.
I cannot see it. I just wanted to share the language I use. People have asked for that before. And I know Anna, I mean, and believe me, everybody's done. Why can I not find where we are on Zoom? I can't find you guys anymore. Anyway, yeah.
Anna got it.
Okay.
I'm good at the Zoom stuff, maybe a little bit. Do you see your syllabus language here, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm going to go into your office. I can't see the Zoom. Go ahead. Jesus, people, I'm telling you.
I told we share a wall. All right, we have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so sorry guys, I can't see anything. So this is just something that I use and about encouraging, as Anna said, and everybody else is doing, kind of putting it out there as to why it is best to have a environment where we are open to diverse experiences, right, in life, and how that is key to growing and to learning better. And then I do get very kind of serious about what I will not allow in my classroom, because if you don't say it, I find students don't know. And just having that, students have told me that second paragraph where I put what is not accepted very specifically, they appreciated that, because that kind of lowered their fear of saying something. Because if they're in a group doing something or in group work at home, they know that that is not accepted. We can't assume students know that unless we say it. That's what I always feel. And then I also put, if you're ever uncomfortable about anything, I always tell them I'm trying my best. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make inadvertently people feel uncomfortable. Please reach out to me at any time and we can solve the problem. And so that's really been a big help. So I just wanted to share that in case you wanted an example of something. Yeah.
And the last thing is, I think Chris Stiles, I see that you put in the chat, what do you do if they're afraid to reach out to you? I just email students. I will literally email a student from my office after class and say, I noticed that, it looked like maybe you're having a rough time in class today, or, hey, I just wanted to reach it out and check up and make sure, see if there's any questions you had, and like give them my office hours. So like, I definitely have taken more time in the past year or two to actually reach out to students via email.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I will, so how do we share that? You can't put it in the chat.
I will share the document with you. Nicole, yes, I can. How about you email me if you want?
Yeah, email.
Yeah, can you email me and I will include the links with me? Okay. I will give this to Sarah and then she will add them.
We have no idea.
We have no idea. We don't know what we're doing. But it is 12:01, so we do want to let you guys go so that you can go have lunch. But thank you guys for being here. And just
email if you want something.
Yeah, email us if we're also in the CI building. So email us, and thank you guys so much for participating.
You guys are great. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.